Hi, welcome to Podcast Connection Review. In this podcast connection review, we're talking about absolutely everything that you need to know about podcast connection. That is, if it's a platform that you need to try out, if it's a platform that you need to check out, or it's just another platform out there that you need to run away from and not waste your time and money on. We'll be looking at all of this in this podcast connection review. Also, we'll be looking at what podcast connection is all about. That is, what are the benefits of podcast connection? What do you stand to gain using podcast connection? What are the uses? What are the benefits of podcast connection? As well, we'll be looking at the users of podcast connection. That is, who can actually make use of podcast connection. We'll be looking at all of this in this podcast connection review video. Also, we'll be looking at the pros and the cons. That is, the good and the bad side of podcast connection. For any product that is doing good, that is doing amazing, if you look at it very carefully, you find out that it's also got its own bad side. So we're looking at the interesting part and as well as the bad side of podcast connection. Also, we'll be looking at the pricing plan. That is the different pricing plan that podcast connection has got in stock for you, as to their different capability, as to their different features, as to what they can actually handle. Which is why it's very important for you to stick to the end of this podcast connection review video, so you get to see all the pricing plan that podcast connection have got in stock for you. Also, we'll be looking at what others are saying about podcast connection. That is, the present and existing users of podcast connection, what they are saying about it. Which means you do not necessarily have to listen to all I have to say about podcast connection, but you get to see what other users of podcast connection are saying about it. Finally, we'll be looking at my final recommendation as to what I personally feel about podcast connection. That is, if it's a product I need to try out, if it's a product I need to check out, or just another time wasting and money wasting platform out there that you need to run away from and not waste your time and money on. Which is why it's very important for you to stick to the end of this podcast connection review video, so that you get to see all the important tips I'm about to drop about podcast connection. Alright, to podcast connection review in full. This is podcast connection homepage. This is podcast connection homepage. Now, what does podcast connection do? Podcast connection is actually a platform that allows you to get features on podcast. It allows you to get features on podcast. That is, you'll be able to get podcast sessions using podcast connection. So they help you to get sessions. You'll be able to, probably if you are a business owner, you are an expert that you want to talk about your services, you want to advertise, or you want to promote your businesses, you want to promote your brands. They help you to actually reach an international market that is highly targeted through the widely use of podcasting. That is, you get to promote your business, promote your services, promote your brand using podcasting. That is, you're able to reach out to highly targeted market, highly targeted audience via podcast. So they help you to actually get featured. They help you to actually get a session or get sessions, actually get plenty sessions for on podcast. So they actually work with different and high podcast hosts. They work with them, so they help you to actually bring you down to their podcast. They help you get features on their podcast, so that you can actually talk about your business, you can talk about your brand, which thereby you'll be able to increase your online presence. You'll be able to generate leads, and as well you'll be able to increase your own sales as well. So if you're actually looking for a way to actually promote your business via podcast. Podcast connection is actually offering you that opportunity for you to be able to actually get features on podcast, so that you can promote your business, promote your services, promote your brands. So if you are looking for such, podcast connection is actually offering you that opportunity. Now let's look at the pros of podcast connection. Number one, it allows you to easily gain access to a unique way to build trust with engaged audiences for your brand and businesses. That is, you'll be able to gain access to a unique way to build trust with engaged audience. That is, you get to have access to already engaged audiences that are interested in what you do. You gain access to that, so you do not need to actually start looking for audiences. The audience are already there. They're interested in what you do. They want to know more about what you do. So all you just have to do is just to come and promote your business, talk about what you do. So you have access to an already engaged audiences for your brand and businesses. So you'll be able to easily gain access to a unique way to build you. So all you just have to do is just come and talk about your business so that you'll be able to build trust with them, and thereby you'll be able to gain more customers or gain more audience. Number two, it allows you to easily gain leads, grow your online presence, and eventually generate sales for your business. That is, after you build that trust by coming on the podcast session to promote your business to an already engaged audiences, and you'll be able to build trust with them, you'll be able to actually gain leads, and as well you grow your online presence, and eventually you generate sales for your businesses. That is, when you build trust with those already those audiences, you'll be able to get more sales. They will come and patronize whatever services, whatever goods, whatever services you are offering. So it allows you to easily gain leads. You grow your online presence, and as well you eventually generate sales for your business. Number three, it allows you to easily build meaningful connections with influential podcast hosts who can become potential referral partners to your business. That is, you'll be able to have access to different influential podcast hosts. You'll be able to make friends with them, be able to build a meaningful relationship, a meaningful connection with them, who can actually become a potential referral partners to your business. That is, when you build a meaningful relationship, a meaningful connection with those influential podcasts that has thousands, millions of audiences, they will be able to help you actually refer your business, probably talk about your business. They will refer your business to other people in order for them to patronize you. So it will also increase your conversion. So that you will be able to, which means that you can actually have easy access to them via using podcast connection. You'll be able to build meaningful connection with influential podcast hosts that can actually become a potential referral partner to your business. Number four, you significantly save you time, money, and stress. That is the time that it will take you to actually own a podcast channel yourself. Probably you're trying to actually have a podcast channel. The time that it will take you to start to create a podcast channel, the money and as well as the stress in actually making that podcast to be functional, or trying to maintain that podcast, instead of you trying to actually build a or create a podcast channel, you can easily just get features on already made podcast channel that have audience that are actually interested in what you do. So it will save you that time, to save you that money, and as well as the stress. Number five, it allows you to easily work with podcast expertise to create content from or for podcast session. That is, you'll be able to work with podcast expertise. That is, you'll be able to work with podcast connection agents, their expertise, in order for you to create content from or for a podcast session. Probably when for from a podcast session, in the sense that probably when you are actually on the podcast, you'll be able to actually create a content for you that you can actually post on your social media in order to enlighten or to in order to enlighten your own audience on your social media, that okay, you're on a podcast session and you talk about this, you want to talk about this. So it's actually make your audience to actually want to know more, so they can actually also as well tune into that podcast to listen to what you have to say about your services, about your products. So, and if they value for your content, they can actually also help you to also create create content for your podcast session. That is, they help you to actually build a content. You help you work together with them to actually build content that you want to actually talk about, or how you want to talk about it in your podcast session. Number six, they've got a great customer support. Now, for any product that are newly introduced to, there's likely that you might encounter some difficulties while trying to use it for the first time. That's where the customer support comes in. They're always available to you whenever you contact them to help you to resolve whatever issue, whatever difficulties that you might be having, so that you can have a great and smooth stay. Their customer support is great. So number seven, they can easily train you or your employee to book you on a pod to book you on podcast. That is, they also offer the services of training you or any employee of your business, so that you can actually, so that that person that has been trained, we have that expertise, we have that knowledge, we have that training in order to help you to book you on podcast. That is, you don't, which means that you don't need to start employing agents from podcast connection anymore. But after an employee or you has been trained to become an expert to book you on podcast, you will not need the services of podcast connection anymore. So you'll be able to actually build, you'll be able to actually book yourself on podcast. You have that knowledge. They will train you with that knowledge to be able to actually do this in order for you to be able to keep promoting your businesses via podcasting. Now, to the cons of podcast connection, as at the time of making this podcast connection review video, I've not really found any bad side as to podcast connection. But for any product, any platform that is doing good, that is doing amazing, there's always room for improvement. So I think podcast connection can actually be better. They can actually improve on their services. Now to the pricing plan of Podcast Connection. The best minimum plan for you to get started with Podcast Connection is $199 per month. The best minimum plan for you to get started with Podcast Connection is $199 per month. But if you want to see other pricing plan as to their different capability, as to their different features, as to what they can actually handle, and for you to be able to see the pricing plan that will be most suitable for your own usage, there's a link in this video description for you to click on to see the full pricing for the various packages and the offers, and as well as the discounts that they come with. So if you want to see the pricing plan, the different pricing plan that Podcast Connection has got in store for you, as to their different capability, as to their different features, as to what they can actually handle, and for you to also see the pricing plan that will be most suitable for your own usage, there's a link in this video description that you can click on to see the full pricing for the various packages and as well as the offers and discounts that they come with. Like I said before, the best minimum plan for you to get started with podcast connection is $199 per month. Now, to the users of podcast connection, this is Angie Atkin. He said, working with Podcast Connection positively streamlined all the intricate and moving parts to bring together an amazing interview experience. I highly recommend their services. All right, this is Joel Goldberg. He said the team at Podcast Connection has been great to work with. They are professional, organized, and always send the type and caliber guests that resonates with my audience. When I get a referral from Podcast Connection, I know there is a great podcast episode in the making. All right. Now, to my final recommendation as to what I personally feel about Podcast Connection, if I would say we've got a good platform that is reasonably easy to use, they're highly efficient for getting you booked on podcasts in order to promote your businesses. It will save you time and stress and also get you the best out of your efforts by exponentially providing you with a unique way to build trust with engaged audiences for your brand and business. We've also got a great customer support. Like I said before, we've got a great customer support. They're always available to you whenever you contact them to help you resolve whatever issue, whatever difficulties that you might be having. I would say again, they are worth it because they serve the prime function of getting features on podcast platform. Now, from everything I've said about podcast connection, if you podcast connection is something you'd like to make use of, something you want to try out, something you want to check out, there's a special link in this video description for you to click on now to get started at a very unusual discounted price that you won't find elsewhere. If you want to try out podcast connection, you want to see what you can actually do for you, want to see what you can actually gain with podcast connection, there's a special link in this video description for you to click on to get started at a very unusual discounted price that you won't find elsewhere. Thank you for watching my video review. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And if you've got any question, any inquiry about podcast connection, don't forget to make use of the comment section. I'll try as much as possible to attend to each and every question. Thank you for watching my video review once again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.